What up, guys? What up? What up? Welcome back to another video. Today, it's going to be a little bit different to what I normally would post. This is more of a reminder for me. This is more of a reminder and kind of like a diary entry, as you would say, a public diary entry. Because I think it'll serve as a reminder to myself, obviously. Two, as kind of a release or a cleansing of sorts. And thirdly, kind of a therapeutic thing, which kind of ties into the second part anyway, so I don't really know if I needed to say that third part. But, anyways, let's get straight into it. A reminder for me. Before I do get straight into it, I also want to say for a lot of people, this may not resonate. For certain people, this may not resonate. If it doesn't resonate, it's probably not for you. You know what I mean? So, you may have different things going on in your path that puts you in a different position for you to actually be able to experience things on a different level, of course, and that is valid. Everyone's got their own path, their own journey. So I'm not here to tell you how to live your own journey. I'm here to just remind myself what's worked for me on my journey, and if that is also a help to anybody else who's experienced something similar, I can be like a sort of example to stick to whatever they've been doing. So, especially the most people who are going to relate to this is going to be fixed signs. Specifically, if you're a Taurus, you most definitely will relate to this a lot more than maybe others. Actually, I can't even say that. You know what? Because I know there'll probably be some other fixed signs that'll relate to this even more on the same level as a Taurus. But I can speak from a Taurus perspective because I'm a Taurus. You know what I mean? So I know my own experiences. But if you're a fixed sign in general, this may ring very true for you guys. You may get a lot of wisdom from this. And it may just be a reminder. It may not even be a wisdom thing. It's just a reminder to be like, okay, yeah, I already knew that about myself. And now I'm just being reflected back what I already knew. You know what I mean? So when it comes to this video, this was based on the fact that I keep going through experiences time and time again. The universe always shows me experiences and synchronicities that whenever I stray too far, now don't get me wrong, what is it called? Disclaimer as well. A disclaimer just to say there is certain situations that listening to others has helped me, but those are very small on a percentage scale, actually. And if anything, the times when I've actually listened to myself and my own perspective, my own way of, specifically, my own way of making sense out of things, because that's the earth quality of Taurus right there. More often than not, I've experienced more positive circumstances. And what do I mean by that? For example, generally, if I listen to a lot of other people, or if I just listen to people too much, or I allow other people to make sense out of what's going on in my world, I'll experience negative circumstances. I'll experience a mistake or something going wrong, or I'll experience myself being proven right about what I strayed from in the first place, if that makes sense. So, every experience that I go through keeps telling me more and more. No, stop listening to other people. Just make sense out of shit yourself and you will be good. Even in circumstances where I've been wrong, per se, when I've made sense out of that circumstance myself and I've made sense myself to which led me to being wrong, those circumstances have even shown me that overall, in a general sense, I was right to do what I did. You know what I mean? So it doesn't really matter which way I look at it. It doesn't really matter which way I go in terms of this. It always leads me back to this perspective, to listen to my own way of thinking, to listen to my own way of making sense out of the world. You know what I mean? And that's because I have that earth quality. In terms of if you're like a fixed sign and you've got fire or water, it's going to be probably more based on your expressions or your emotions, or a mix of both. And if you're air or earth, you're going to relate a lot more to me when it comes to your thinking or the way you make sense out of shit. Specifically, the senses to do with earth. The thinking is more air, but both are thinking. You know, if you're making sense out of something, you have to think about it in some way, shape, or form, you know? So, especially you might also resonate if you have heavy fixed placements in your chart. Like if you have a moon fixed, if you have like, I don't know, specifically maybe you have like your chart ruler is a fixed sign, like a Leo, Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius. I'm pretty sure those are the fixed signs, right? All of those energies is gonna point to these kind of experiences. And don't get me wrong, other signs will probably experience this to some degree as well. You know what I mean? Because we're all here to make up our own mind about shit. You know what I mean? But I've just noticed it's really strong when it comes to me. And I've noticed other people in my life. And, you know, I could just be biased and not looking at it clearly. But generally, even in that regard, I don't find myself in situations where I'm being biased. If anything, oh my gosh, that is so annoying. The crookedness of the earphones was pissing me off. Anywho, if anything, I found myself being in more situations that have shown me that I'm not biased. So it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. All of that shit I chuck out the fucking window. You know what I mean? Because my experiences is what I go by. When I am able to look at my experiences and make sense out of shit, then that's when I've noticed better outcomes, better energy, better state of being mentally and physically. So I'd be not stupid, right? Yeah, the S stands for the extra. I'd be extra stupid to go by anything else. You know what I mean? So when it comes to this video, it's just a reminder for myself and anybody else who may have gone through similar experiences. Stick to your own truth. Stick to your own way of thinking, making sense out of things, feeling, or expressing things. Even if some situations it might feel or look as though you're wrong, if your experiences constantly show you more negative outcomes when you listen to other people, when you pay attention to other people's ways of thinking or feeling or making sense out of shit or expressing shit, then that's your example. That's your synchronicity. Your synchronicity keeps showing you whenever you follow down this path, whenever you go down this line of thought, train of thought, whatever the heck, you end up in a negative circumstance. And we don't want to be manifesting more shit that we don't want to experience, right? You know what I mean? Even when sometimes I'll find myself in circumstances where, yeah, I might not have wanted to experience certain things, but then it leads me eventually to even coming to the thought process and the feelings as well, to be like, yeah, I didn't want to experience that, but I also came to that roundabout mindset where I come full circle and I'm like, but I know this is what's right for me, and I know this is a good lesson for me to actually grow and take myself to the next level, and I end up feeling better for it anyway. So it doesn't really matter as long as I'm feeling at peace, as long as I feel like I'm on the right path, as long as I feel, you know, stable and like I have something solid to stand on. Even if I was wrong, it's going to lead me to that energy anyway, because I'm in that state of being, of having something solid to stand on, having something stable. That's the difference between, you know, someone who's probably like really seen as really, really negative and someone who is seen as more justified or positive is because the person who's seen as more negative, they're probably going through a whole bunch of shit in their mind where they're like doubting themselves. They're building one thought and then they're killing that with another thought because they believed one thing, but then the next thing, then something else shows them and they're like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't have followed that thought. So they have nothing solid to stand on. The only thing solid that they're standing on is guilt, feeling like they've done something wrong, mistake. All of that energy leads them to being perceived as a negative person. And I know this because when I was in that state of being mentally, I was perceived negative as fuck. And even today, I might do some of the things that I might have done back then, but because of my state of being and how sure I am and how much I know from my experiences, my synchronicities that I see within my reality, and my certainty within myself as well, it's leading me to actually experience completely different circumstances. Even though sometimes I look at my reality, I'm like, this seems like this, almost the same thing, but it's not, because my reality is showing me, no, look at how everyone's reacting, look at how the situation is playing out. It's not even the same. Yeah, you might have been acting in some similar ways, but it doesn't actually play out the same. And that's where I'm like, okay, I see what's going on. You know what I mean? It's all about your mind state. It's all about your mentality, creating that shit for you to experience. And when I was in a negative, uncertain, and um, unstable mindset, I experience a lot of negative, uncertain, and unstable situations. Now that I'm less so, I might still experience some of those karmic lessons from when I was in a negative mindset, but the way I'm able to handle them and the way I'm able to come out of them and the way I'm able to rise above them is significantly better. And then it leads me to even better mindsets where I'm like, yes, I know that I'm on the right path. Yes, I know that I'm speaking my own truth, regardless of if that aligns with other people's truth or not. And a lot of times it might not align with people's truth, especially if you've been in a negative, kind of unsure, unstable type of mindset for majority of your life. You've got so many karmic lessons and so much energy around you that points to certain negative energies that other people may be able to pick up on or just project onto you. But if you keep succumbing to those, of course, you're going to get lost into that world and you won't be able to find your way out. This is how people end up like spending the rest of their life making the same old mistakes over and over and over and over again. And they don't know how to get out of it because they didn't start building on their mentality. They just kept that same mentality and it may have looked different to them. But the thought process, the mindset, all of that just stayed the same and it didn't actually lead them anywhere except for feeling more guilty, feeling more wrong, feeling like you made another mistake. You know what I mean? Even if sometimes I feel like I make a mistake, I somehow will find some way in that situation to make it the right thing. It was the right thing for me to do, if that makes sense. I'll always find a way to be like, oh, actually, even though, yeah, that might have been a mistake in the time, but it led to this outcome, it led to this outcome, and it led to this outcome. So, like, was it really a mistake? You know what I mean? Like, I just don't, that shit doesn't happen to me in terms of mentally. And then physically, it plays out in my reality eventually. I may experience resistance, I may experience something showing me, well, no. But then if I fight against that, it's like, I'll come to the situation, it's like, well, actually, yeah. And then I'm like, okay, I knew it. I fucking knew it. So, I want to thank Spirit as well, all possibilities, for all this confirmation too, because without it, I wouldn't be able to stand as strong as I am able to stand mentally. For me to be able to even get up here and speak about this, I would still be less than, I'd still feel like a bitch. I'd still feel like I need to like bow down to somebody else's mentality, somebody else's mindset. And I don't want to fucking do that no more. Fuck that shit. Fuck that shit. Because, like, yeah, when it comes to being a fixed sign, one of your major things is to be fixated on your own way of doing something. And if depending on the element, that's your way of doing it. So if you're water, you're going to be fixated on your own way of feeling and receiving and like internalizing shit. If you are bro, this freaking cat is digging in the trash. Oi. Can't be fucked dealing with that right now. I'll deal with that after. So, when it comes to I swear, this motherfucker's digging. There's nappies and shit. He's digging right past the nappies. You don't want to put your face in there, bro. We need to get a lid for that bin, honestly. So, I think there was a lid actually. I don't know what happened to it. So, that distracted me real good. So, if you're a fire sign, you're always going to be fixating on your own way of feeling and expressing, and so on and so forth. Earth sign, fixated on your own way of thinking and practicalizing. Air sign, thinking and fixating on your own way of thinking and communicating. So it's important to not, obviously there's certain times, like I said at the start of the video, there's certain times when listening to people may be beneficial, but I'm talking about overall, as an overall sense. And if anything, arguably, it might even be to the point, especially if you've got a lot of fixed placements in your chart, might even be majority of the time. It might be very rare and small on a percentage scale that you actually should be listening to other people. And don't mistake as well listening to other people for using or utilizing something that you listened or heard from someone in order to make sense out of your own life. You know what I mean? Because there's a difference. There's a difference between listening to someone and then taking that and using it to help you make sense out of something, as opposed to just straight up listening to other people. You know what I mean? Two very, very different things. One of them is going to lead you down a bullshit path because you're not thinking for yourself. Another one is going to help you in the long run. But the key point here is that you are utilizing that thing to help you, as opposed to just like going by that thing because you think that person is like just justified, or that person seems like a credible kind of person. I've had so many people in my life, they seem so credible, and their advice has really, really massively helped other people in their life. And then because I've lost myself into that mindset and thought, yeah, you know what, if they've helped other people, they seem credible. I've never really seen them go through shit like that. Like, I see them go through more experiences that I would want to experience. So I just kind of blindly listen. I've done that in the past. I blindly just listen. And then it's led to more and more negative circumstances, to the point where I started to look at my circumstances. I was like, okay, well, what am I doing wrong? And what I was doing wrong was I wasn't making sense out of it myself. Yes, maybe what they said is valid for them, but I also have my own experiences. So I need to collate that. I need to kind of collaborate their own perspective with my own way of thinking. But the majority needs to be my own way, because I'm fixed. I'm fixated. I need to fixate my energy. So yeah, theirs might help me to fixate my energy, but that's key word there. Help me to fixate my own energy, not help me to do what they do. You know what I mean? And that's why it's important when it comes to life to do things with the awareness that what's right for you may not be right for someone else. What's right for someone else may not be right for you. If I'm a fixed sign, a mutable sign may not get very far listening to some of the things that I say. You know what I mean? Or, a cardinal sign more so. If I'm a fixed sign, a cardinal sign might not get very far listening to some of the things that I say. But if you're more in an equilibrium state like I am, generally, majority of people will be able to get some kind of wisdom or knowledge. But a lot of people in this world aren't in an equilibrium state, so they're going to be coming from their own bias, their own perspective, without seeing the bigger picture. Even if you feel like a lot of them do see the bigger picture, a lot of times in life will show you that they might see a bigger picture within their own world, but that's the key word there. It's within their own world. They're not able to see a broader world beyond their own. So yeah, in their world it's big, and you may be in their world looking outside, being like, yeah, that is big. But once you actually take that moment and actually step out of their world, you'll realize that it was actually a lot smaller than you had seen initially. So that's a little reminder. I'm just gonna sit here and think as well. There anything else that I wanted to cover in this video? I feel like I've covered quite a broad sense, but in a general way, you get the idea. Don't freaking listen to other people too much, Take it on, utilize the tools that they are able to give you. Of course, that's a good way of listening. But as opposed to like kind of blindly following, that is not the go. And I've honestly, genuinely thought that I'd finish this, and I think I actually have. Honestly, I see it. I'm doubting myself now a little bit. I'm like, okay, well, if I really got over that, why am I sitting here talking about it in this video? I think this is kind of just a final kind of way for me to kind of fully exercise this shit, this demon out of my freaking system, because I've listened on a percentage scale of where I'm listening to other people or following other people, and it's gotten to the point where it's very, very small instances. Like, for example, it used to be like whole circumstances and situations in my life where I would listen to people, and that whole entire circumstance would fuck me over. Now it's like small things like, oh, like let's say like, can you go do this thing? Like, or like I talk to someone and it's like, we're talking about like a specific